He identified some of the constraints around the site. There were others. You can see overhead power lines in through here. The fact that Northfield Road will ultimately be 4, maybe 5 lanes. Potential interchange here. So access was limited. You can see on the first slide there was kind of an access out toward Boxwood Road, and then right in, right out was restricted on here. So there were some other constraints on that site, all of which had to be molded into what we have here. With their operation, obviously, they're looking at a lot of impermeable or impervious surface because they have large trucks that they're operating on, doing repair and maintenance operations on those. So there's going to be a lot of hydrocarbons that are on the ground. Being that we're immediately adjacent to a Northfield marsh and ultimately tributary to the Mousseau River, there's concern about the treatment of those waters before discharging on the site. As Gary mentioned previously, it was a rock site, so there was limited opportunity to do any infiltration. So we had to work through that. And obviously, looking back now, some of the methods we use there, are there better methods we could use? Are there additional ones? Sure. And on the next one, we might get to that. Because I mean, one of the things we see here, first thing you notice is this nice big flat roof. You know, so there are some, but it's also the appetite of the owner, the developer, to actually go that next step, as well as the consultant team. At that time, that just wasn't something that was there. But it's that incremental approach to increasing the expectations as we go through. This was the first expectation, and Craig Mousseau actually commented on it. This was his first development that he did that he never put very much in the way of storm piping. There's one catch basin for that, and we're not seeing it. Another slide will show it. But the entire area is impervious. Only one catch basin. And the reason for that was we're looking at use of bioswales and treatment of or scrubbing of the hydrocarbons that would use the vegetation. That's certainly prior to discharge into the marsh. Another method we utilize here is using the rooftop detention, which again is a more traditional detention method, not a green detention method. But the water spills off that onto this dry creek bed and flows subsurface to get to the wetland. Knowing full well, again, as I was saying, putting this into context, Tom, again, it's clear direction that do whatever you want on site, but I want my pipes. So if we have a problem, we can, we're going to need drainage for our road here in the future, which is the DCC project. Part of that would be the storm pipe. So up to this point, it's been in the ground now for a number of years, and I don't think we've had a problem with it. So maybe we won't need storm piping in this situation.
Just before you go on, one of the interesting things is this was one of the projects we had in Cabby. People come out to take a look at it, and we had not gone out on the site to see if everything was working properly. And so we go out there, and I was actually amazed. There's a bioswale that runs along that property edge. Actually, this is the bioswale I'm talking about. And there actually had been some runoff from some event on the asphalt, but it had actually been taken care of by that bioswale and by the planting in it. And you could actually see how it had been taken care of, and how the vegetation had sort of effectively scrubbed it. No oil sheen that was running down this bioswale, which was most interesting and kind of a happy event to see it working. We had no idea. That's one of the weaknesses of what we've been doing with a lot of developers is there's no sort of monitoring process. We don't have that. We don't have any tools to do on-site monitoring.
Yeah, the only tool we have is obviously whenever they do any landscaping, we take bonding and security for that. The security won't be released until 2 years. But actually, when we went back out there, you can see it here. There's this one. You can see the drying out and some feedback. So Gary, I don't know if I can't recall whether there was a lot of replanting that had to go on because by and large the water from the site plus I think they had supplemental irrigation to get the vegetation established took care of that. that tree buffer that Gary was showing earlier. I don't see if we can see it on here. This tree buffer along here, the original plan for the development was to remove a lot of that vegetation and plant something new. And Gary worked with the landscape architect to incorporate the existing trees in there. And by grading a lot of the parking lot to let it sheet flow off onto there, you have established trees, they're used to receiving water, they're doing the same thing. You reduce the landscape irrigation costs for the developer. So that $300,000 premium to doing this project at the start, he's going to realize some savings over the years by reducing his irrigation costs. So obviously, it's a great marketing tool for him as well.
One of the things that I've started to kind of realize through these discussions and sort of some of the work we've done with other projects is that there's an aesthetic to doing this. Stormwater management is not just a bioswale or a catchment area. It can actually take on an aesthetic design quality. And in this case here, where Dee was just talking about the sheeting of the water, what's happened is when the architect designed this building, all the office windows face out to this tree buffer. And it actually creates a very interesting space when you're looking out, and it really gives the office this kind of premium office space along that edge. And also, stormwater management, like we have to use the roof, and although Greg was willing to try the green roof concept, the owner wasn't willing to go there. But he didn't the architect didn't sort of let that go. He held that concept. And so the roof water comes through the sluice box, which is tied in, as I mentioned, the history, the kind of context. And then unfortunately, this is pipe. It was supposed to actually be an open.
There's a subgraded bottom.
Yeah, because they're afraid of the water coming up here and back into the floor because the grade is somewhat below. But I've actually been there on major rain events, and this does work. It's a huge cascade of water. It looks pretty cool. So there's another sort of how you design with stormwater management. We couldn't quite get what we were looking for with the green roof potentially, but the architect has embraced the concept of the rainwater, and I think he's kind of taken it to an asset rather than a negative.
Just some other views. Here again is the as Gary was mentioning, the sluice box and the dry creek bed. Yes, there is a pipe in there. It's set obviously above where the shot rock is. So by and large, until you get an extreme rain event, it is running through the rock. The subdrain is there to give it an easier way out if you start getting flows up to an elevation that will potentially backwater into foundation grades or anything around the building. So it's there as sort of a fail-safe.
Yeah. Okay, I think one of the things I want to sort of impart here, sort of share, is the fact that the collaboration is ongoing now. With that team, we're finding with all the projects that come forth, I mean, we don't really have any sort of bylaws in place. We have some, but we don't have the bylaws to the level to say, manage a green roof, or do a lot of these alternative methods. But these folks are actually, when they come in with their client, they're talking about those issues. And that ongoing collaboration, I mean, in this case, we're actually very comfortable with that team are developing a lead gold office. And what he's doing with his contractor's office, he's going to actually showcase every bit of green technology. His idea is to give the people who walk in, who want his services, a menu and say, this is what's happening in my building. Here's the bioswale. This is how it works. There's a pervious pavement. There's an intensive green roof. There's an extensive green roof. And what he's done, what these discussions, it's so interesting how part of these discussions have led to Dean's erosion sediment control initiative.
Yeah, the one